Hello there, and welcome back to Science for Sleep. Tonight, we are going to explore the most extraordinary subject in all of science. Not the largest, not the oldest, not the most distant or the most violent or the most mathematically complex, but the most extraordinary. Because tonight's subject is the one that includes you. Tonight, we are going to explore life. Biology is the science of living things, of the processes that separate the animate from the inanimate, of the mechanisms by which matter organizes itself into forms capable of growth, reproduction, sensation, and response, of the 4 billion years of evolutionary history that has produced, from a world of chemistry and physics, something as improbable and as beautiful as a cell, a tree, a whale, a human mind lying in a quiet room at the end of a day. The facts we are going to explore tonight are not facts about abstract systems or distant phenomena. They are facts about the living world that surrounds you and that you are part of. The biology of the forests and the oceans and the microscopic world invisible to the naked eye. The biology of the body you inhabit. The biology of the other organisms sharing this planet with you. Organisms that have been solving the problems of survival and reproduction for far longer than our species has existed. Biology, more than any other science, is the study of solutions, of the extraordinary variety of ways that living things have found to exist, to persist, to adapt, to connect. Every organism on Earth is a solution to the problem of being alive, and the solutions, when you look at them closely, are endlessly surprising. Tonight, where are you listening from? Is the room quiet around you? Is your body beginning to settle? Then you are already participating in biology. Your cells are dividing. Your neurons are firing. Your immune system is patrolling. Your heart is beating at a rate tuned by millions of years of evolution to the demands of a body at rest. You are, right now, one of the most complex biological systems on Earth, and you are about to learn something about the company you keep. So let your breathing slow, let your muscles release, and let's begin. Every living thing on Earth is made of cells. This includes you with your approximately 37 trillion of them. It includes the oak tree, the blue whale, the bacterium, the mushroom. The cell is the fundamental unit of life, the smallest structure capable of carrying out all the processes we recognize as living: metabolism, reproduction, response to the environment, growth. The cell was first described in 1665 by the English scientist Robert Hooke, who examined thin slices of cork under a primitive microscope and saw a pattern of small enclosed spaces that reminded him of the cells of a monastery. He called them cells. He was looking at the empty walls left behind when the living contents of plant cells had died. The actual living contents of cells and the extraordinary complexity of what happens within them would not begin to be understood for another 2 centuries. The human cell is a structure of almost incomprehensible sophistication. It is bounded by a membrane composed of a double layer of lipid molecules, a fluid and dynamic boundary that controls what enters and leaves, responds to chemical signals from outside, and anchors the proteins that carry out dozens of critical functions. Inside the membrane, the cytoplasm is a dense and active environment in which thousands of chemical reactions are occurring simultaneously. At the center of most cells is the nucleus, a membrane-bound compartment that contains the cell's genetic information. The human genome, the complete set of genetic instructions for building and operating a human being, is approximately 3 billion base pairs of DNA packed into each nucleus. If you stretched out the DNA from a single human cell, it would extend approximately 2 meters. The DNA in all the cells of your body, laid end to end, would stretch to the sun and back approximately 67 times. And yet this enormous length of DNA is packed into a nucleus approximately 6 micrometers in diameter, less than 1/10 the width of a human hair. The mitochondria are the statutes within cells that generate most of the cell's energy. They are approximately the size of a bacterium, and this is not a coincidence. Mitochondria are descended from bacteria. Approximately 1.5 to 2 billion years ago, a bacterium capable of using oxygen to generate energy was engulfed by a larger cell and, instead of being digested, formed a partnership. The bacterium provided energy. The host cell provided protection and nutrients. Over time, the bacterium became permanently incorporated into the host cell. Every mitochondrion in every cell of your body is a descendant of that ancient bacterial partnership. This event, called endosymbiosis, was one of the most consequential in the history of life. It gave rise to the eukaryotic cell, the cell type that all complex multicellular life is built from. Without that ancient merger, there would be no animals, no plants, no fungi. The partnership struck 2 billion years ago between a bacterium and another single-celled organism is the reason you exist. The cells of your body are not permanent. They divide, and their daughters eventually die and are replaced. The rate of replacement varies dramatically by cell type. The cells lining your gut are replaced every 2 to 5 days. Your red blood cells live approximately 120 days. The cells of your skin are replaced approximately every 2 to 4 weeks. Some neurons in your brain appear to last your entire lifetime, never dividing, accumulating the experiences of a lifetime within their slowly aging structures. Your body replaces the majority of its cells over the course of several years. The you of today is, in a very literal cellular sense, a different collection of matter from the you of 7 years ago. What persists is the pattern, the organization, the information encoded in DNA and expressed in the structure and function of trillions of cells working together. Deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, is the molecule that carries the genetic instructions for the development, functioning, growth, and reproduction of all known living organisms. It is a double helix, 2 strands wound around each other, each strand composed of units called nucleotides, each nucleotide containing one of 4 chemical bases: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. The sequence of these bases along the DNA molecule encodes information in the same way that the sequence of letters in a text encodes meaning. The structure of DNA was determined in 1953 by James Watson and Francis Crick, using X-ray crystallography data produced by Rosalind Franklin and Maurice Wilkins. It is one of the most consequential scientific discoveries in the history of biology, revealing for the first time the molecular scheme by which genetic information is stored and transmitted between generations. The genetic code is essentially universal. The same code is used by bacteria, by oak trees, by fruit flies, by humans. This universality is one of the most powerful pieces of evidence for the common ancestry of all life on Earth. Every living thing on this planet is reading from variations of the same ancient instruction set. Only approximately 1.5 to 2% of the human genome codes for proteins. The function of the remaining 98% was once dismissed as junk DNA, a label that has proven spectacularly incorrect. Much of this non-coding DNA plays regulatory roles, controlling when and where genes are expressed. Some of it consists of the remnants of ancient viruses that integrated into the human genome millions of years ago. The human genome is approximately 99.9% identical between any 2 human beings. The differences that make each person genetically unique are encoded in approximately 3 million base pairs of variation across a genome of 3 billion base pairs. The human genome is also approximately 98.8% identical to the genome of the chimpanzee, our closest living relative. Approximately 85% identical to the genome of the mouse. Approximately 60% identical to the genome of the fruit fly. And approximately 31% identical to the genome of baker's yeast. The same fundamental toolkit of genes, modified and elaborated over hundreds of millions of years, underlies the biology of organisms as different as a yeast cell and a human being. Epigenetics is the study of heritable changes in gene expression that do not involve changes in the DNA sequence itself. Chemical modifications to the DNA molecule and to the proteins around which DNA is wound can activate or silence genes, and in some cases, these modifications can be passed from internet to offspring. The experiences of one generation, including stress, nutrition, and environmental exposure, can influence the gene expression patterns of subsequent generations. The boundary between what is genetic and what is environmental is more porous than it once appeared. Evolution by natural selection is the central organizing principle of biology. It is the process by which populations of organisms change over time through the differential reproduction of heritable traits. Organisms with traits that increase their chances of surviving and reproducing in their environment leave more descendants than those without those traits. Over generations, the frequency of advantageous traits increases in the population. Over millions of years, this process can produce organisms as different from their ancestors as a whale is from the land-dwelling mammal it descended from approximately 50 million years ago. Charles Darwin published the theory of natural selection in 1859 in On the Origin of Species. He had been developing the theory for more than 20 years, accumulating evidence from his observations during the voyage of the Beagle and from the work of animal breeders who had demonstrated that artificial selection could produce dramatic changes in domestic animals within a few generations. Evolution does not have a direction or a goal. It does not proceed toward greater complexity or greater intelligence. It responds to the conditions of the moment. The history of life is full of lineages that grew more simple over evolutionary time, losing structures and capabilities that were no longer useful in their particular ecological context. Cave-dwelling fish that have lost their eyes, parasitic organisms that have lost most of their metabolic machinery, flightless birds on islands without predators. The Cambrian explosion, approximately 538 to 520 million years ago, was a period of extraordinary diversification in which most of the major animal body plans first appear in the fossil record. Within a geologically brief period of approximately 20 million years, the ancestors of virtually all modern animal groups appeared. Plants are so familiar, so constant a feature of the landscapes humans inhabit, that it is easy to underestimate how remarkable they are. They are, by biomass, the dominant life form on Earth's land surface. They have been present on land for approximately 470 million years. Photosynthesis, the process by which plants convert sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into glucose and oxygen, is the foundation of almost all life on Earth. The energy that flows through virtually every food web on the planet was originally captured by photosynthesis. The oxygen in the atmosphere, without which most animal life would be impossible, is a byproduct of photosynthesis. Plants communicate. When a plant is attacked by an herbivore, it releases volatile chemical compounds that travel through the air and are detected by neighboring plants. These neighbors, upon detecting the signal, begin to produce defensive compounds in their own tissues before the herbivore reaches them. This chemical communication allows plants to warn their neighbors of threats. The mycorrhizal network is a web of fungal threads that connects the roots of most land plants in most ecosystems. The relationship between plants and mycorrhizal fungi is one of the most widespread and consequential symbioses in nature. The fungi extend the effective root system of the plant into soil volumes far beyond what the roots themselves can reach, increasing the plant's access to water and nutrients. In return, the plant supplies the fungi with sugars produced by photosynthesis. The networks of fungal threads extend between the root systems of different plants, sometimes connecting plants of different species. These connections allow the transfer of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and water between connected plants. In forest ecosystems, older trees with large canopies have been shown to transfer carbon through the mycorrhizal network to smaller, shaded seedlings. This network has been called the Wood Wide Web. The animal kingdom encompasses approximately 1 million described species, with estimates of the true total ranging from 8 to 10 million. Every year, billions of animals move between seasonal habitats, traveling distances that range from a few kilometers to many thousands. The monarch butterfly undertakes one of the most extraordinary migrations of any insect. Each autumn, populations in North America travel up to 4,000 kilometers to their wintering grounds in the mountain forests of central Mexico. No individual butterfly makes the round trip. The migration takes multiple generations, each generation traveling a portion of the route and reproducing in the appropriate season. The butterflies that return to the Mexican winter grounds in the autumn are the great-grandchildren or great-great-grandchildren of the butterflies that left those same forests the previous spring. The Arctic tern undertakes the longest migration of any known animal, traveling from its Arctic breeding grounds to Antarctica and back each year. A round trip of approximately 70,000 kilometers. In its lifetime of approximately 30 years, an Arctic tern may travel more than 2 million kilometers, the equivalent of 3 round trips to the moon. The bar-tailed godwit holds the record for the longest non-stop flight of any bird. Tagged individuals have been tracked flying continuously from Alaska to New Zealand, a distance of approximately 11,000 kilometers in approximately 9 days, without stopping to rest or feed. Whales have evolved from terrestrial mammals. The earliest whale ancestors were 4-legged, deer-like animals that lived approximately 50 to 55 million years ago. Over approximately 15 million years, these animals gradually adapted to aquatic life, their hind limbs shrinking and eventually vestigializing, their forelimbs transforming into flippers, their bodies elongating, their nostrils migrating to the top of the skull to become blowholes. The blue whale is the largest animal known to have ever existed. It can reach lengths of approximately 30 meters and weigh up to 190 tons. Its heart is approximately the size of a small car. Its call, produced at frequencies below human hearing, is one of the loudest sounds produced by any animal, detectable by other blue whales hundreds of kilometers away. Despite their enormous size, blue whales feed almost exclusively on krill, tiny crustaceans a few centimeters in length. Bioluminescence, the production of light by living organisms, has evolved independently approximately 40 to 50 times in different evolutionary lineages. It is produced by the oxidation of a light-emitting compound called luciferin. The light produced is cold light, generated without heat, with an efficiency approaching 100%. In the deep ocean, bioluminescence is the primary source of light and the primary medium of communication. More than 75% of deep-sea organisms are capable of producing their own light. The human body is composed of approximately 37 trillion cells of more than 200 different types. The coordination required to maintain this organization is achieved by systems of chemical and electrical signaling of extraordinary sophistication. The heart beats approximately 100,000 times per day, every day, for a lifetime. In the approximately 80 years of an average human life, the heart beats more than 2.5 billion times, pumping approximately 200 million liters of blood. It does this without rest, without requiring conscious attention, driven by an electrical impulse generated by a specialized cluster of cells called the sinoatrial node, the heart's own pacemaker. The immune system is the body's defense against infection and disease. It is not a single organ or a single mechanism. It is an extraordinarily complex network of cells, tissues, proteins, and signaling molecules distributed throughout the body. The immune system must distinguish between the body's own cells and foreign invaders, between harmless environmental molecules and dangerous pathogens, between self and non-self. The microbiome is the community of microorgans that live on and in the human body. The gut microbiome alone contains approximately 38 trillion microorganisms, approximately equal to the number of human cells in the body. The microbiome performs functions that the human body cannot perform on its own, including the synthesis of certain vitamins, the digestion of complex plant fibers, the regulation of immune function, and the production of neurotransmitters that influence brain function. The relationship between the gut microbiome and mental health has emerged as one of the most rapidly developing areas of biological research. The gut and the brain are connected by the vagus nerve and by a rich bidirectional chemical signaling system called the gut-brain axis. The composition of the gut microbiome appears to influence mood, stress responses, and even cognitive function. The brain contains approximately 86 billion neurons, connected by approximately 100 trillion synapses. It consumes approximately 20% of the body's energy budget, despite accounting for only about 2% of its mass. What we cannot yet explain is how these physical processes give rise to the subjective experience of being conscious, of being a self, of experiencing the particular quality of what it is like to see red, or feel grief, or hear music. This question, called the hard problem of consciousness, may be the deepest question that biology poses. And it is a question that, tonight, you are uniquely positioned to contemplate. Because whatever consciousness is, wherever it comes from, you are having it, right now, lying in this room, listening to these words. One of the most important insights of modern biology is that organisms do not exist in isolation. Life is relational. Every organism exists in a web of interactions with other organisms that shape its evolution, its physiology, its behavior, and its survival. The clownfish and the sea anemone have one of the most familiar symbiotic relationships in marine biology. The anemone's stinging tentacles, which would paralyze and kill most fish, do not harm the clownfish. The clownfish lives within the anemone's tentacles, safe from predators. In return, it chases away fish that would eat the anemone and fertilizes the anemone with its waste. The relationship between figs and fig wasps is one of the most specialized mutualisms in nature. Every species of fig is pollinated by one or a very few species of fig wasp, and those wasps can reproduce only within the flowers of their specific host fig. A female wasp enters a fig, crawls through the interior pollinating the flowers, and lays her eggs in some of them. She dies inside the fig. Her offspring develop within the fig's flowers, mate with each other, and the females emerge carrying pollen to continue the cycle. The relationship has been maintained for approximately 80 million years. Lichens, organisms that grow on rocks, tree bark, and soil surfaces across the world, are themselves a symbiosis. A lichen is not a single organism. It is a partnership, usually between a fungus and a photosynthetic partner. The partnership allows lichens to colonize environments too harsh for either partner alone, including bare rock surfaces, polar environments, and desert conditions. Those were the most relaxing biology facts. And now something that has always been true about this moment becomes, perhaps, slightly more vivid. The room you are lying in is not separate from biology. The wood or concrete of its walls is composed of material that was once part of living systems. The air you are breathing has passed through the leaves of plants and the lungs of animals. The microorganisms on your skin and in your gut are carrying on their ancient lives, indifferent to the time and the darkness and the fact that you are almost asleep. Your neurons are firing in patterns shaped by 4 billion years of evolution. Your immune cells are on patrol. Your heart is keeping its ancient rhythm. The mitochondria in your cells, descendants of bacteria that first formed their partnership with eukaryotic cells 2 billion years ago, are generating the energy that keeps you warm. You are not a separate observer of the living world. You are part of it. You are made of the same atoms that have cycled through billions of organisms across 4 billion years of life. You carry in your genome the traces of viruses and bacteria and ancient evolutionary experiments that span the entire history of life on Earth. You are connected, through the tree of life, to every organism that has ever existed. The monarch butterfly setting its ancient compass, the blue whale calling across hundreds of kilometers of ocean, the fig wasp completing a cycle 80 million years old. the mycorrhizal network threading silently through the forest floor, the mitochondria in your cells still carrying their own ancient DNA. All of these are expressions of the same improbable, persistent, endlessly inventive thing: life, which is what you are, which is what, in this quiet moment, you can rest inside of, without effort, without intention, with nothing required of you but the willingness to let the night do what the night has been doing for the entire history of your species, and for the entire history of every species before yours. Let the biology proceed without you for a while. Let the breathing happen on its own. Let the heart keep its rhythm in the dark. Science for Sleep will be here when you return.